Wine, and Poetry. The 10-year fucking anniversary. So I'm going to tell a story, a little different than usual. Posted this on my Facebook page earlier today, or my timeline, I guess is the proper nomenclature. But since we're not all friends, although we should be, figured I'd also share it with you this evening. But first, it's like the Pop Rock Soda Challenge, but so much fucking worse. Oh my god. God damn, that's terrible. Oh my gosh. Wild shit's gonna happen tonight after that, let me tell you. So, here we go. Steve Barker and I first met in 2001. We were both students in an undergrad poetry workshop at a small liberal arts college in Southern California. We'd seen each other on campus before, but had never talked until one day when we were standing outside on a break from class. I don't remember what we were talking about, probably Bukowski or Wu-Tang, knowing us then. In the middle of the conversation, a pigeon landed on a ledge above me and took a giant shit on my head. Pigeons have shit on me before, maybe a half dozen times. My mother used to tell me it was good luck, but I don't believe that superstition. When a bird is shit on your head, you know there's nothing lucky about it. 14 years later, I'm still not much for superstition, but maybe the shit was a sign. By 2004, Steve and I had moved up to Seattle, and a year after that, we did the very first Cheap Wine and Poetry out there in the Cabaret. 2005. When we had Charles Shaw for 50 cents a glass. Inflation is a motherfucker, isn't it? Fucking dollar now for this shit. Oh, I got it. Oh my God. Oof. I remember the night before freaking out because I was convinced no one but the readers and winos would come. But that's not what happened. The Hugo House Cabaret was packed, even though 12 people read, and it took about 3 hours. The reading was so much fun, I woke up with a hangover 23-year-old me couldn't handle. It's been 10 years since that night when two kids tried to put on a show, and tonight we're here to celebrate. Oh my fucking God. So, back to how we always do this. Who's been to Cheap Wine and Poetry before? Can you make some noise? Was there anyone here that was at the first one besides me and Steve? Nah. Oh, one? Yes. Oh, you were there. Staying true. Who hasn't been to Cheap Wine and Poetry before? Can you make some noise? Fuck, look at that. Well, I want you to be crazy, though. Be loud. Can you make some noise if you haven't been before? Oh, thank you. Wow. It's crazy. 10 years, and we still got virgins out there. It makes me feel good. Well, for those of you who haven't been, we have some rules here at Cheap Wine and Poetry. Rule number 1, of course, is to drink. Oh, it's awesome until you do this. It's a great rule until that happens. We like to have a good time here at Cheap Wine and Poetry. We got beer. We got PBR, a sponsor. Thank you, PBR. For $1, got the wine for $1. I think they got shots over there. Wild shit's going to happen tonight, like I said. So please, drink. Rule number 2, though, have fun. We like to have fun here at Cheap Wine and Poetry. Laugh, cry, do the poetry side, the prose groan, clap your hands. You can snap your fingers, do whatever you want. We get wild here. You want to throw some panties on the stage? It has happened before here at Cheap Wine and Poetry. I assure you. We like to have fun, like I said. Rule number 3, don't have too much fun, Like, don't do this shit. Let me say that. Don't do this shit all night. You want to do it once, that's fine. I wouldn't go all night like that because it's awful. Would not. Don't do that. We do it pretty casual here. If you want to get up and grab a drink, you can. Say, excuse me, pardon me, that sort of thing, But we keep it light here. If you need to go to the bathroom, you got to have a cigarette, go do your thing. We're family. Be family. And rule number 4, support these fucking writers. We got a couple of folks that have books for sale out there. They're going to come up here and do their thing. When they come up, show them the love, make them feel like they have a reason to be here. Make them feel good about themselves. It's hard out there for writers. We feel terrible about ourselves on a regular basis. So give them a reason to live, please. All right, so the folks we got coming up here tonight, I'm going to say their names, and I want you to make some noise. One of them is not in the room right now. He is teaching a class upstairs. So when I say David's name, I want you to go so crazy that he hears us up there so that he knows what he's missing out on right now. So we got Amani Sims taking the stage tonight. Give it up for Amani. Got my boy Robert Lashley coming up here to do his thing. My sister from another mister, Suzanne Morrison, coming up here. And the one who couldn't join us tonight until later, David Schmader. Fuck it. I took tomorrow off. Usually we do an open mic, but because we're trying to party, we said fuck the open mic. So Janine and Steve Mauer are going to get up here and play some music as the drop shadows after the reading. So please stick around, party with us, get drunk, and listen to some music. That's kind of the lineup for this evening. And now I'm going to hand it over to the hostess. Please give it up for Dr. Janine Walker.
I noticed that one of the rules was don't have too much fun, and yet he's got these two. Hi, everybody. How's it going? So, 10 years. I know it's the 10th anniversary, but I prefer to think of it as a 10th birthday. So 10 years ago, May 19th, 2005, 2 dads came together lovingly and had a baby. Because of its Cabernet red face and its screams that could only be described as poetic, they had to call it Cheap Wine and Poetry. After many years, after panties being thrown and hand-carved wooden dildos and countless sex poems and poetry sighs, these 2 dads are still together, doing their business and making magic. And then they had a little brother, cheap beer and prose. Anyway, I'm happy and so grateful that I am able to be part of their little family and to be here with all of you. It's so, so, so exciting. We're all like jumping inside today. So Brian and Steve, thanks so much for having sex all those years ago and giving birth to Cheap Wine and Poetry, which we can celebrate today. I was really surprised when I Googled great birthday gifts for a 10-year-old reading series that nothing came up. I was shocked. So I gave him a tin can. I'm just kidding. I didn't give them anything. But yeah, I remember when I turned 10, I got a pair of earrings, and it was just like these little studs. And I had like been begging to get my ears pierced, and I looked across the table at my dad, and he looked at me very sternly, and he's like, "This means I approve of you getting your ears pierced." And then 3 months later, I had gotten them pierced, and they got infected and grew shut. And he's like, "I knew that wasn't a good idea." Real dads. You guys ever notice how, on TV, the dads are just like, "Son, you've had a hard day at school. You got a bad grade. Let's sit down and talk about it." And in real life, dads are like, "Why did you do this to me?" That one hits too close to home for some of you, I can tell. Oh, real dads. Another gift I got when I was 10 was Madonna's Like a Virgin. My brothers both pitched in $5 and they got me the cassette. And it was really exciting and also ironic because earlier that year I'd been sitting around at like a rainy day recess inside the classroom and like next to the bookshelf with 3 of my friends. And my friend Krista decided to ask us all if we were virgins, like one by one. She's like, "Are you a?" And we're like, basically, I was 9 at the time. She's like, "Are you a virgin? Are you?" And I thought the only association I had with that word was the Virgin Mary. So I really thought it was going to be blasphemous if I said I was a virgin. So I was like, no. And they were all like, what? But, astute as I was, I read their expressions and quickly was like, no, I'm just kidding. And they're like, oh, phew. But, yeah, to this day, I still don't know what it means.
All right. Wow, what a night, huh? Did you guys have fun? All right. Can we show some love for Amani and Robert and Suzanne and David? So if you've read at Cheap Wine or Cheap Beer, or if you've done the open mic, can you make some noise for me? Everyone who's ever read before. I love you guys. You got anything you want to say before we close the show out?
No, 10 years you've been saying it, so.
Yeah. All right. Steve's like, you've been running your fucking mouth. Why don't you just keep running it? All right, cool. So we want to have a toast. We do a little toast. 10 years. This is to all of you. It's all my friends. Oh, that's still terrible. It's been a good night. Please stick around and party with us. The Drop Shadows are about to take the stage, give you some music. It's been fun. 10 more? The fuck? All right. 10 more. Here we go.
It's a song we wrote because it's the 10th anniversary, and we love you all, and we love Brian and Steve, and we love me. So let's go.
$5 for a bottle of wine, $1 for a beer. You can buy a whole table around and still be in the clear. So throw down that Lincoln, throw down some Washingtons, fill your arms with drinks, enough for everyone. Cheap wine and poetry, cheap beer and prose. What will it hold for me? What will you disclose? Will this have a happy ending? A big tragedy? Cheap beer and prose, cheap wine poetry.
Brian starts a night, tells us what the rules are. Number one's to drink either Chuckshaw or PBR. The show gets started, the lights are dimmed real low. It's not dark as night, we say, but dark as a bottle of Merlot.
First rule,
Drink.
second rule,
Drink responsibly.
third rule,
Have fun.
fourth rule.
Support local writers.
Cheap beer and wine. Cheap beer and rose is where you wanna be.
Barker's in the back, mixing sound and lights. The show wouldn't be half as good without him here tonight. They welcomed all the poets and all of the prose writers, but it's the opens for all. There are no outsiders.
Cheap wine and poetry, cheap beer and prose. What will it hold for me? What will you disclose? Will this have a happy ending? A big tragedy. Cheap beer and prose, cheap wine poetry. It's always on a Thursday night, just 6 times a year. Each one of them counts, so make sure you make it here. It's usually in the cabaret, yeah, in the cabaret. And afterwards there's an open mic. It's worth it if you can stay. Cheap wine and poetry, cheap beer and prose. What will it hold for me? What will you disclose? Will this have a happy ending? A big tragedy. Cheap beer and prose, cheap wine poetry.
With a hammer. Don't shotgun your wine and drive. You might get thrown into the slammer. Readers leave you thinking about something for days. And then be here.
Cheap wine and poetry, cheap beer and prose. What will it hold for me? What will you disclose? Will this have a happy ending? A big tragedy. Cheap beer and prose, cheap wine poetry.